I'm just going to do China Camp in G, open. If you want to play with me. If you want to, you don't have to.
Shabbat shalom, ladies and gentlemen. Having a tough time getting everybody's attention.
Shabbat shalom.
It's an occupational hazard at Leo Beck Temple. What can I tell you? I think we are friendly, but I think there are some temples that listen to the rabbi more. I suspect. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You guys will show them. This is true. This is true. That's like a recipe for disaster. It's true. That's a good point. Here's what I'd like to have you do. Before we start to sing with one another, and we're going to begin tonight with a melody without words, so you can just kind of immerse yourself in the melody without having to kind of get into language. Let the language of the soul be the one that speaks first. So before we do that, I want to make certain I'm looking around our outdoor chapel tonight. I'm seeing a lot of longtime folks. I'm seeing some newer folks to the community. I'm seeing some visitors to the community. I got some folks who are trying us out for the very first time. It's a great time to look around the outdoor chapel, find somebody you don't know, and go wish them a Shabbat Shalom. I know I'm asking for trouble because then I'm going to have to get you quiet again. But, fool me once, shame on you. So. Go wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Find somebody you don't know and wish them a Shabbat Shalom.
No, you go do what you're being told. Go do what you're being told to do.
So this anarchy is my fault. I know that. It could. That's not bad for you folks. That's pretty good. Outstanding. I promised you a melody without words. This is a melody that we've sung a couple of times, but not so recently. And so Kenner Haas is going to teach it to you one more time. For many of you, it will probably be the first time. For some of you, you may be thinking to yourself, this is vaguely familiar, but you haven't sung it in a while, so we'll make sure that everybody's got it. Just ground your soul down deep into this melody. Let it open you up.
This is a melody called the China Camp Nigun, which might seem a little bit strange. It was written by a dear friend of both of ours, Dan Nichols, and he told me that he wrote this song as he was driving down China Camp Road, which is up in the Bay Area, and the melody came to him at a time he really needed it to. It goes like this. Try that. Beautiful, listen. 2 lines together. Yai nai na nai na nai. Yai nai na nai 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 nai. Listen. Yai nai nai. Yai nai nai. Try that. Yai nai nai. Yai nai nai. Listen. Yai nai nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Try that. 1, 2, 3, and yai nai nai. Yai nai 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 nai. This is my favorite part. It goes like this. Yai nai 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 nai.
There's a lower register.
A little lower, yeah. Ready? Yai nai 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 nai. That's what we're gonna learn tonight. Goes like this, all together. Yai nai na nai na nai. Yai nai na nai 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 nai. Ya na nai. Ya na nai. Ya na nai. Ya na nai nai na nai.
The low parts.
Here we go. Yai nai 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 nai. Let's do it all together one more time. It's beautiful. Yai nai na nai na nai. Yai nai na nai 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 nai. Ya na nai. Ya na nai. Ya na nai. Ya na nai nai na nai. Yai nai 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 nai. Let's do that low part one more time. Nai 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 nai. Last time, one more time. Yai nai 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 nai.
Love listening to you sing. So great.
All right. So we have this time, this opportunity to be here in this moment together. But also coming from all the places that we've come from outside of this place. Some of us may have come from places that were really hectic and crazy and had weeks that maybe unfortunately offered disappointments, or maybe there were blessings that appeared. But all of that aside, we are here and we are in this moment, and we can be present, even if it's just for this hour, to be together, to hold on to this blessing that we have. This blessing I actually found, which is called the Buddha's Discourse on Goodwill. So I offer this to you. May all beings be filled with joy and peace. May all beings everywhere, the strong and the weak, the great and the small, the powerless and the powerful, the short and the tall, the subtle and the gross, the seen and the unseen, the dwelling far off or nearby, being or waiting to become, may all be filled with lasting joy. Let no one deceive another. Let no one anywhere despise another. Let no one out of anger or resentment wish suffering on anyone at all. Just as a mother with her own life protects her child from harm, so within yourself let grow a boundless love for all creatures. Let your love flow outward toward the universe to its height, its depth, its broad extent, a limitless love without hatred or enmity. Then, as you stand or walk, sit or lie down, as long as you are awake, strive for this, a one-pointed mind, your life will bring heaven to earth. Hatred ever kills, love never dies. Such is the vast difference between the two. What is obtained by love is retained for all time. What is obtained by hatred proves a burden, for it increases hatred. That was said by Gandhi. I invite us to take those blessings in and join together. You'll find our first prayer on your supplemental page at the bottom. L'chuna ranana. Let us sing out a new song. Let this song be different and in this moment so beautiful.
From mountain to sea, hear our song. L'chuna ranana, lai 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 lai, l'Adonai, lai 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 lai.
We are ready to welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst, opening our hearts with love to all the possibility that this Shabbat holds for us. That cosmic wedding between our God and our people that takes place every time we recite the words of L'cha Dodi in song. Those words are found on pages 20 and 21. We'll join together in singing the first and second verses, first two verses on page 20, and then the top and bottom verses on page 21. So verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
L'cha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. L'cha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. שמור וזכור בדיבורך, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ושמו תפארת ותהילה. אותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונאוכה, כי אם מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Top of 21.
התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף קומי אורי, אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלי ניגש. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
I invite you to stand if you're able and to face the entrance to our outdoor chapel and open your soul's eye to see her. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה,
גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי כלה, בואי כלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
We are on page 28. Stay right where you are. I'll invite you to turn first to page 34, just in case you need the words of the Shema handy. I will invite you, even in this really beautiful setting, where we like to open everything up to the senses, just to close your eyes for a moment. In our lives, in our world, there's far too much that feels fragmented. Even if it's just a matter of our lives, the puzzles that we put together in order to make the day work, to ensure that there are enough hours to get through all of the nitty-gritty of our lives. Very easy for us to start feeling fragmented, unwhole. Shema is about celebrating oneness, unity. Shabbat is supposed to be a time where we can rediscover all of that. Pause just long enough to notice that the fragments are supposed to be contributing to some greater whole. That greater whole is supposed to be you and me. And then when we make something truly holy out of that, it becomes all of us. This entire world into one great unity. Adonai Echad. God is that one. I am here, I'm now, asking when, asking how, only I, only thou, only one.
Fill my heart, fill my soul. I am part of this whole. I will sing out my soul to the one. Shema Yisrael. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
In a moment, we're going to join together in singing Micha Mocha, our prayer of liberation, celebrating redemption, our freeing from all the things that enslave us. I don't know about you. It's sometimes a little hard for me to commune with that feeling. Not only just because of all the stuff in my own personal life, but because this is a world that feels like it's awaiting that kind of redemption in these days. Our country, our people's ancient home, so many troubled corners of the world, it's a little hard to get inside the feeling of hope that this prayer is supposed to summon from us on page 40. I want to share some words with you that were spoken by a figure in history who may not be so familiar to you, but should be. I don't know if you have heard of the 20th century figure Václav Havel. Very good. Some yes, some not so sure. Václav Havel was the last leader of Czechoslovakia and also the first elected leader of the Czech Republic. So that means that's a neat trick to pull that off, you might imagine, right? So here's a guy who was sitting in with the levers of power and all of that leadership and control, the responsibility of that, at the time when his country was literally coming completely apart. And then somehow managed not only to lead his people through that utter chaos, but then to be the convening leader, the leader that helped them to put the pieces back together again and was democratically elected, the very first one in the Czech Republic. So here's what he had to say about hope, and that's a guy who I think we can trust, because if you take all the things that are troubling us and leaving us feeling a little hopeless in these days, I don't know that they necessarily outpace what Václav Havel had to say when he spoke these words. He said, hope is definitely not the same thing as optimism. It's not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. The deepest and most important form of hope, the only one that can keep us above water and urge us to good works, and the only true source of the breathtaking dimension of the human spirit and its efforts, is something we get, as it were, from elsewhere. It is this hope, above all, which gives us the strength to live. We, on this Shabbat evening, are reaching for that hope from elsewhere. And we do that every time we sing these words on page 40. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נעתר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אליך. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נעדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אליך. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. מלכותך רעו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו, אנו ואמרו, אדוני
As we look above our heads in this tent, which I always am learning it's the accidental tent that never got taken down, but we're so grateful that it never got taken down. I think, I don't know, maybe. Now it would be nice to look up at the sky, but if you can peek out, you can see the sky.
It's coming down.
It's coming. But it was a sense of protection and support and a place where we could gather when we couldn't really gather inside. And so this tent did provide a shelter for so many of you all. I wasn't here yet, but for you all that allowed you to be here and to be able to pray together. And the fact that we have that ability now to sit in this space and be unmasked and be together and see faces serves as such a security blanket for me to look out and to see all of you all and your faces and to hear your voices. So we have this prayer that we all know very, very well, and I think it really is vital to our community, this Hashkivenu, this prayer of safety and protection. You can find the words on your supplemental sheet.
Hashkivenu
Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom, V'ha'amidenu Malkeinu L'chaim, Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai.
If you'll turn forward to page 46, if you're able, please rise.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach Adonai Sfatai Tiftach Ufi Agir Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, U'mevii Geula Livnei B'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, Mechayei hakol ata, Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al givurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom, yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
The Amidah continues in silence through page 62. It's a time to lean into these words of the prayer book or into the words that reside deeply within you. As we spend this time in quiet prayer, you can feel free to remain standing or be seated whenever you're ready. send a message out to all of you in the congregation in the middle of the morning today, talking a little bit about this week's Torah portion, as we're at one of those precipices. Precipi? Thank you. Precipi. Standing with our feet right on the border between books of the Torah. This is the week in which we study the double portion that ends our study of the fourth of the 5 books. The book known as Numbers in English, in Hebrew, Bamidbar, the story of our people as they wander in the wilderness. We too know a thing or two about wildernesses, even if we've never been forced to wander through a desert. Those deserts have a way of finding their way to us. And I shared with you in that email teaching from the great Hasidic master, the Baal Shem Tov. We talked about how the journeys of our people in that wilderness were counted up 42 of them in the book of Numbers. And what he taught was that each and every one of those 42 journeys is made not just by the people of Israel, the Israelites in the Torah, but by each and every one of us. 42 journeys. All those wildernesses stretched out in front of us. I think what he was trying to say was that it's not just that, we can commune with those ancients and feel a part of their story, but that perhaps we might be able to commune with one another and feel a part of each other's story. To know that whatever it is that has brought you troubled into this beautiful outdoor space tonight, everybody else is experiencing their own journey, and it contains something of that heart heaviness, that weariness. It includes something of that joy and that transcendence, something of the possibility. We're all walking those 42 journeys, each and every one of us in our own way, in our own time. Finding out a little bit more about the mystery that life and love are, can be. Discovering how little we know, but how much fuller we can become when we open ourselves to one another's story and discover that it is in some large part our own.
Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, the clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave him laughing when you go, and if them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus clowns, I've looked at life that way. But now old friends are acting strange. They shake their heads, they say I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from the win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life. I've looked at life from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life. I really don't know life at all.
You're going to need this one. Should have had it with your prayer book. If anybody, we have folks who are also kind of enjoying the rim of the outdoor chapel. So if anybody does not have access to the yellow page, we got a couple of them still here. Most of them are spoken for, but I want to make sure that everybody can follow along with us on the study page. We're back to color. Glenn is right. Glenn remembers that, oftentimes in the summer we study like this more informally as opposed to a sermon time. And there's usually, Glenn is right, there's usually some kind of rhyme and reason to the color that I pick for the piece of paper. So for those of you who are newer to us and are not, have not been previously privy to the method to my madness, you will not be able to guess why bright yellow tonight, but you will understand why bright yellow by the time we are done. Deal? Deal. So, as I said, double portion that ends this study of the book of Bamidbar, and its very first words are right here at the top of this page from the book of Numbers, verses 2 and 3. Do I have a really lovely reader who will read aloud? I'll bring the microphone over to you so everybody, including our worshipers who are joining us from home, can study along with us. They don't have the page in their hand, so they definitely need to hear you read the words. Anybody want to read for us this brief little passage in the English at the top? Just the 2 verses from the Torah? English is fine. Alex was thinking that I was, kind of slimming the ranks by looking for a Hebrew reader. It's okay. It's all good. Peachy's going to do it. Peachy's on. Here we go.
I'm
unless somebody else wants. Moses spoke to the heads of the Israelite tribes, saying, "This is what the Eternal has commanded. If a man makes a vow to the Eternal or takes an oath imposing an obligation on himself, he shall not break his pledge. He must carry out all that has crossed his lips."
Outstanding. So this is how the Torah portion begins. And for the Hebraicists that are among us, I want to point out, I want to pay a little special attention to two words that appear in that passage. Because remember, the challenge always when you're studying any text in translation is that every translation is ultimately an interpretation. So there's some value in going back to the original language. And so one of the words that I want to point out is the fourth, if you don't count the dash that's in between two of the Hebrew words, in the third verse, verse 3. So, ish ki yidor neder. So, the neder is the Hebrew word for the vow that we're talking about in this passage. Does that word neder remind you of anything? Nidre, very good. As in, kol nidre. Kol nidre that we sing, we listen. Cat Hass sings, exactly. So, the royal we sing the Kol Nidre. That prayer is about all of our vows that we've taken in the year previous, some that we made good on, some maybe not so good, and we're asking to be released from those vows. So that Hebrew word, incidentally, it makes me a little queasy to bring this up because it just means that we're just a couple of months away from the High Holy Days, and there's an awful lot that goes into making that happen. So deep breath, namaste, Rabbi, we'll be okay. So that's one of the words I wanted to point out. The word for the vows, the oaths that we take, is one that is reminiscent of a season of the year for sure. There's another word that I want to point out, though. It is the next line down in the Hebrew, the very last word in that line, yachel. Yachel is the word in this instance that means to break, as in to break the vow, to break the oath that you made. But Rashi, one of the great medieval teachers of Torah, says that it's actually not break. He looks at the Hebrew for Yachel, and he likens it. The Hebrew is a language where words are part of like a word family. So once you know the root of a Hebrew word, the root letters, you can start to derive all kinds of other words that have that same root, and you put them all together, and you really do kind of have a key to unlock the meaning of that word. So Yachel, in this instance, he starts looking at words like chilul, which is the desecration of something like Chilul Hashem, to desecrate God's name. Or Chiloni, same Hebrew root. What's the word Chiloni? Any Hebraicists who can get that one for me tonight? Chiloni means secular. Sometimes you'll hear in Israel talking about dati'im and chilonim, the religious people and the secular people. So he's looking at those words, desecration, secularity, and he says, as you can see in this passage that's in the middle of the page, in fact, the Gera Rebbe, who is actually in this instance being cited, is a Hasidic master. So he comes along hundreds of years later, and he's grabbing on to Rashi's teaching about this word not being so much about breaking your vows, but kind of making them secular, desecrating them, taking all the holy out of them, if you will. And he teaches the following. The Gera Rebbe moves us beyond Rashi. He deduces that if to break a pledge means to secularize it, then the words of the oath must be holy in themselves. Right? Is this not the implication of trying to translate that word, that it's not about breaking oaths, it's about secularizing them? The implication of that is that the words of oath that we speak, especially when we do so in this place, and especially at High Holy Days time, that those words actually carry more than they're just not an ordinary promise. They are, in fact, imbued with holiness. So, he says, the words of oath must be holy in themselves. God made the world with words. Let there be light, right? Spoke the world into being. So, words make reality. Uttering the words themselves implies and action. When these words are spoken in distress, they can be redemptive. When these words are infused with the words of Torah, they provide us with inner strength. So this is now making a bigger deal out of the vows that we are trying to get forgiveness for having broken. It feels almost like anathema to raise the stakes, if you will, on the vows that I don't know how you've done. You've had 10 months. You still got a couple left. That's actually the reason why I'm bringing this up now, before it's too late, right? And we're in there saying we're sorry for all the vows we broke. Time is still in front of us. I'm wondering for all of you if it feels to you this is just some kind of Hasidic innovation that doesn't really reflect our tradition's long understanding of the relationship between words and action. Is this just the rabbis playing with language? The passage from Hosea, from the prophets, that's down at the bottom of the page is, I think, a pretty good answer to the question. Who would be willing to read for us the words of Hosea, chapter 14, verses 1 through 3? I'll bring you a microphone. You just have to read them in English, Alex. It's all good. And then we're going to talk about them. Who will be willing to read that for me? Another reader. Good reader. I got a good reader right here. Great reader. Outstanding reader.
So your plan. Samaria must bear her guilt, for she has rebelled against her God. They will fall to the sword, their little ones dashed in pieces, their women with child ripped open. Thanks, honey. Return, O Israel, to the eternal your God, for you have stumbled in your iniquity. Take words with you and return to the eternal and say, forgive all iniquity and accept the good, and we shall offer the fruit of our lips.
Now, I did not have us read that passage for that first part. Painful part to look at. But it is, in fact, attached to this later part, the second half, which, once again, should sound kind of familiar. What does it sound like? The language, return, O Israel, to the eternal your God. You have stumbled in your iniquity. Yeah, it feels a little bit about Hashivenu Adonai Lecha B'Nashuva that we pray at High Holidays time, right? Return is the same Hebrew word for repentance, for turning ourselves toward what it is we were attempting to become, what it is we declared we were going to be, what our words declared we were supposed to become through action. And so this passage is famous as well for its connection to the season of the year that is not yet upon us, but is coming not too long from now. And once again, translation turns into interpretation. I want you to look at the very last line. The translation says, forgive all iniquity and accept the good, and we shall offer the fruit of our lips. Now in the Hebrew, it says, unishalma parim sfatenu. So sfatenu is our lips. So the fruit of our lips there is the word that's being translated as the fruit of our lips is parim. Now that means that they're playing a little bit, the translator is playing a little bit with the Hebrew word. What's the word for the fruit? We speak it every time we sing the Kiddush. Borei, Pri Hagafen, right? So Pri is the fruit, but the word doesn't say Pri, does it? It says parim. Anybody know what parim means? Cows. Thank you. Glenn is right. The word means cows, not fruit. Nice work, translator. Obviously trying to be idiomatic, capture something of the sentiment of what is meant here, but no. If you actually translate it literally, it says that we are going to offer the cows of our lips. Now that sounds ridiculous unless you think for a moment about what these guys, writing in the time they were writing, might have meant about offering the cows of our lips. What do you think? Yeah, the sacrifices. This is remember the writers of the prophetic books are still fully ensconced in the sacrificial cult of the ancient Israelites, right? When the great temple stood in Jerusalem and the way that we communicated whatever it is we wanted to communicate to God was through action, not through words, apropos of tonight's message. We made animal sacrifices. In fact, oftentimes, parim, cows. And so, it is not an accident. That translation did not do us any great favors. Yes, it's lovely, it's a beautiful rendering, and if you probably put the literal translation, it would be a little hard for most folks to be able to understand what it even is talking about, offering the cows of our lips. But that was what prayer was supposed to be in the first place. Prayer came to replace, when the sacrificial cult ended, the Romans destroyed the great temple that stood on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. When you visit Jerusalem now and you see that beautiful golden dome that's seated at the top right above the Western Wall, that is the Temple Mount. That is where the great temple stood. The wall itself is one of the retaining walls around what once was the great temple that stood there, destroyed in the year 70 of the Common Era. And ever since then, we have not been able to communicate with God using that ancient practice. Raise your hand if you're disappointed about that. I didn't think there were too many of you. Okay. Somebody disappointed? Anybody? Who? Richard. Oh, Richard? Are you disappointed? I'll get you, I'm not going to get you an animal to sacrifice. I'm not going to do that. But no cows. But they did meal offerings back then too. You could do that. I'm good with that. In all seriousness, obviously, we don't long. There are some in the very ultra-Orthodox world who long for the reinstitution of the sacrificial cult. But we are grateful that the evolution of how we communicated with God, it's a very primitive way, right? When you offer an animal sacrifice, what's the idea? You put this animal on the altar and you burn it up. And how is this a way to please God? Think about it. Think about it the way an ancient person would. What's going on that would make God happy? Where's God? God's up there. What happens when you burn up the animal? Ever go to a barbecue? Smells nice, right? So, literally, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to please God through their actions. Take an animal, put it on the altar, burn it up. The smoke would go upward. They were ancient, but that much they knew. And they were hoping that God would be pleased by this and would be able to tell the difference between, am I trying to communicate gratitude? Am I trying to communicate blame? Am I trying to communicate, I'm sorry for some misdeed that I committed? All dependent upon what the kind of animal you were sacrificing was. And so this seems ridiculous to us now. It's obviously, we're grateful that we get to come together and use our words, and sometimes the words we don't even speak aloud, the words that are resounding from within us as our way to communicate with God. Much better way to do it. But Hosea writes here, we are going to offer the cows of our lips. So, action, not words. Still then, very much married to the idea that our words have that kind of holiness. They are literally supposed to be like the smoke wafting upward or outward or inward, wherever that might be, to whatever you might identify as God, if you would identify it as God, or as something that has divinity attached to it. Yes, Glenn, I'm going to bring a microphone so that we can hear you.
Thank you. I just wanted to make an editorial comment. I was watching MSNBC last night, and they were talking about, current events, and I was struck by this commentary by Larry Kushner, and where it says words make reality, and they're talking about the proceedings, shall we say, and how social media and certain networks have played with words and taken, alternative facts and cheapened it all, so that we no longer, there used to be 3 networks that we all listened to, there's Cronkite, Huntley, Brinkley, and, and their words were what the facts were, because journalism sort of has a sacred duty to communicate the facts to all of us. And that's just been cheapened now by certain people who don't respect the facts. And this really says it all, right? I mean, it's sacred, and that those vows are being broken in a certain way.
It certainly does go to show you, if you think about what has happened with language in the times in which we live, that if we would agree that words can actually possess the power to be extraordinarily destructive, the opposite, chilul, the desecration that is created by words, then does it not stand to reason that the words that are spoken for a holy purpose actually bear great holiness, and therefore bear much more power much more importance than we sometimes afford to them. I want to share with you, by means of conclusion, these words by another Hasidic master at the bottom of the page, Tzvi Hirsch of Vidislav. Our words are, if our words are in fact even holy and they imply action, that is why we so often fail, right? If a man takes a vow, you see where I am, bottom of the page, or if a person takes a vow, they're not going to break their word, but merely keeping their word is not enough. They're commanded, he shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. That he must fulfill the vow with the same fervor as at the time that he took the vow. When you're committing to something, you're filled with fervor for it. It's only when it gets down to the business of doing it that some of the fervor has a way of kind of petering away. In most cases, when a person takes a vow, he does so in a flush of enthusiasm, whereas the fulfillment of the vow is done without passion, as if he is forced to do so. The Torah therefore stresses, you shall do as you swore. So, neder, nidre, kol nidre. You know, those words were once banned in synagogues. I think I've taught about this once before. I don't know how many of you know that for hundreds of years, it was banned. Sorry, cancer. You weren't allowed to not only sing it, speak it, study it, not at all. Why? Because the fear was that non-Jews would see the Jews releasing themselves from all of their vows every year and would say, a Jew can't be trusted when he makes a promise to you, because come Yom Kippur, just forgives himself, and on we go. It was only when it became a little safer to understand it within a religious context, the context that we're discussing it tonight, that it became safe to bring Kol Nidre back into worship space. But we do mean our vows. We just lose our fire for fulfilling them, or the feeling of responsibility that would count as holiness, stepping it up to that kind of level. This week, you see at the top of the page, I put the Hebrew date in addition to the English date. It's the 26th of the Hebrew month of Tammuz. That means that we're almost at the end. These months all have 30 days in them. It's a lunar calendar. So we're almost at the end of this month. And that means that between now and next Shabbat, a new Hebrew month will begin. That month is named? Almost. You skipped one. Elul is the last month of the year. Fortunately, we've got two left, not just one. Av is the month. So the month of Av is going to begin between now and when we gather for the next. You're doing so well tonight, dear. That's great. Yes. So, like gold star. Moved to the head of the class. You didn't say with Lewis. That's what happened. So there you go. So this week begins the month of Av, the last month before the month of Elul, and Elul is the month which is all about preparing for the High Holy Days. So what that means is I'm literally giving you a 1 month warning to the 1 month warning by studying this tonight, right? Which is to say, by the time you get to Elul, you're for the most part using your time going around to people who you failed and saying, I'm sorry for how I blew it. But when the month of Av is upon us, as opposed to the month of Elul, there's still time to actually do the thing that you said you were going to do, that you said with so much passion that you were going to do, apropos of a bright yellow page filled with light and passion, brilliance, right? And so, if the last month is going to be about repentance or preparation for repentance, acknowledging the ways in which we came short of these words that possessed holy power more than just mere secular promise, then this is the time for each of us to regain the passion, or perhaps to revisit the passion, to think for a moment or two about what it was you committed to on Yom Kippur a year ago, almost a year ago, not quite a year ago, so that we can make really good use of this last month before the High Holy Day prep month. You got 2 months left to bring to those promises, those holy words, the kind of bright fulfillment enthusiasm that you had in the speaking enthusiasm. A lot easier to make the commitment than to honor the commitment, to turn the words into the action as our sages teach us to do. Well, there you have it. Yeah.
And those words are very powerful, words that we say, words that I've always been taught that once the words are out there, they're out there. Can't take them back. And so we have this opportunity to use the words of our tradition, the Misha Berach, that prayer for healing that I think gives a lot of comfort to people, but I think when we say it collectively, there's just this energy and this idea of healing that just gets sent out into the universe. And we as a community have people in our lives that are in need of that healing and those words, that ability to say those words out loud to them. And so if there are people in your lives that you're thinking of today, I invite you to please share their names with us so that they can be linked together and held in our hearts. And I'll start over here. All of their names into our hearts as we join together in our Misha Berach, our prayer for healing. You can find the words in the middle of page 253. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mikol Habracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Sheberach Imoteinu Mikor habracha. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Aleinu can be found at the bottom of page 282. If you're able, please rise.
Aleinu
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד.
To help us prepare for the recitation of Kaddish, these words not found in your prayer book, words written by our senior Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Sandy Reagans. Would that the people we love and need could be with us always, but that cannot be no matter how much we wish it so. Why is it this way? We do not know. We will never know. That is the central mystery of life. All we can do is cherish our loved ones until the time comes, as it must, when they are taken away from us. And then, like all the generations before, we must weep for those we have lost and carry on, sustained by the knowledge that something of their essence abides, always with us, as long as we live, giving us strength and courage, comfort and hope. As we prepare to recite the Kaddish prayer this evening, we remember especially Sarah Bennett, Fanny Billett, David George Brooks, Joy Morris Chermak, Florence Daniels, Hattie E. Desser, Tibet Eleanor Doroshow, Alexandra Fischel, Florence Flom Daniels, Mort Gantman, Louise Weinman Girdwin, Barbara Goldenberg, Judith Maccabee Hakim, Bernard Human, Irene Howard, Risa Howard, Robert Jaffe, Benjamin Harris Lautman, Helen Marpet, Karen Peltz, Blanche Peiser, Frank Leon Rose, Mildred Schultz, Erwin Segan, Harold Seltzer, J. Edgar Spitz, Geraldine Turkanick, Ruth Wachs, Shirley Ward, J.H. Buddy Wilkenfeld, Fanny Wolf, Peg Yorkin. Are there other names we should include? If so, please speak them aloud. We take them all into our hearts along with those who we name in our hearts. And also carrying with us the memories of those who have lost their lives as innocent victims of violence in a world that we must shepherd to peace. Holding them all close at heart, we say, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of the righteous is an everlasting blessing. As together we give thanks for the blessing of life. With the words of Mourner's Kaddish found on page 294. If you're able, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei b'kudsha b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, u'ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, amen. May the giver of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved among us, and let us together say, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Shalom b'imromav, u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru, imru, amen. La 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 la. Kissing is welcome. But before we're done, just a brief reminder, tomorrow evening, Havdalah at the beach.
Yeah.
Cantor Hass will be joined by Rabbi Bernie. Rabbi Bernie and Cantor Hass will be out there at our favorite lifeguard Station 7. It's where we are for Tashlich every year. Go out to the beach, bring a little something to eat, drink, a little vino, a little pari, not parim, you know. Don't bring the cows, bring the wine, and have an amazing Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Starts at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock at the beach tomorrow night. Shabbat Shalom.
Will Rogers.
Will Rogers Beach, Lifeguard Station 7. Yep. Right where Temesco Canyon drops down and meets the PCH. Shabbat Shalom.